we'll go ahead and get started. We're glad to have you all here for the podcast. Me and Jaden are here at Gamble headquarters in Missouri. My name is Bobby Ware, and I work with tech support here in Gamble.
Yes, and my name is Jaden Wiley. I work in sales at Gamble. We're very glad to be here with everyone tonight and interview both Lewis and Gentry about their quilting journeys and how they use their machine for a successful business.
And we're going to start out. We're going to start out with Lewis Schafer, and we also have Gentry Clark with us. Both of these ladies. We'll spend a little bit of time asking each of them, just interviewing them and letting them introduce themselves. I do want to tell both of you ladies, Gentry, as we are talking with Lewis, if you want to jump in the conversation, you have something to add, I want you to feel comfortable and, just jump right in if you have something to add. But we will start out with Lewis Schafer. Lewis, we are really glad to have you with us. Let's start out by just tell us where's home for you? Where are you located?
Well, now I live in Summerfield, North Carolina. We've been here. We moved in 2021, and COVID was too much. I had to come home to my mother.
Now, Lewis, how long have you been long arming?
Well, I got my long arm in September, the retrofit in September of 2022. So I've been long arming a little over a year.
So you're a relative newbie compared to some of these, and you're actually running a business at this early stage, right?
Yes, Lewis Schafer Quilting is in its infancy. It it has been quite a labor of love. I go home from my studio over to my house with grinning from ear to ear, thinking how lucky I am that I love what I do so much. As you can tell from my gray hair, I've done more than just quilting, and this is an absolute joy.
That is a real blessing.
And that's actually a good thing, because we strive to have people with different experiences and everything on this podcast. And having somebody that's still in relative early stages, as our target audience for this podcast is a lot of our target audience is people that are starting quilting businesses or even thinking about it. So getting your perspective, I think, will be a valuable thing for them.
I hope so.
I certainly think so. Well, given that you only got your machine and started a year ago, what made you decide that you wanted to get into long arm quilting?
Well, I love sewing. I learned to sew from my granny. I learned to quilt from her sister. My granny had 3 sisters that never got married, so it's like I had 4 grandmas on one side. And of course, my great aunt, who taught me to quilt, took a class at the community college in the late 70s, probably before the rotary cutter was really widespread. And she quilted the Georgia Bond steel way, all by hand. And I was fascinated. And I wanted to try it. But it wasn't until I was in graduate school that I really actually had a chance to try it. And I made 1 block, and that was it. I graduated from school and I went to work. And
so when you got your long arm to start out, did you get it specifically to go into business, or were you doing any personal just pleasure of the quilting? Or
I really did hope to go into business at this stage of my life. I have an advanced degree in cartography, digital satellite imagery, remote sensing, GIS, and I needed to be at home. My husband's elderly parents, we moved them from Colorado into the house next door, and we are caretakers of them. And so I need to be able to, if somebody falls, or if I need to cook lunch, or if we need to go to the doctor, or if I need to run to the grocery store or CVS, I need that flexibility now. And this has helped me with that.
Wow. So Lewis, what made you choose a Gamel whenever you decided to get a long arm?
Well, I did a lot of research. I've worked at a lot of different sewing dealerships. I've sold a lot of different kinds of machines, and by far, quality was what drove my decision. Support, education was also secondary, and a Gamel holds its value. My neighbors, when I lived in New Mexico, each one had other brands, one on one side of me and one on the other side, and they were much like a child's toy. My machine will definitely run 24 hours a day, 3 shifts. It's built to be an industrial machine, and it does the job. I feel like it does anything that I ask it to do, as long as I'm smart enough to calibrate it properly.
Sure.
So did you just you just started out slam with a Statler machine, is that right?
Yes, I have a Gamel Statler Ascend retrofit. I bought what I bought because I wanted the speed, I wanted the computerization. When I was fresh out of graduate school and still in North Carolina, I ran the plotters for the state of North Carolina, and the principle of a long arm software is the same. I felt confident that I could run it. I just had to learn to think like the software thinks. So the first thing that I did was I took every in-person class that Gamel could offer me, in both computerized and hand guided. And I've been served very well by that education.
And every time we talk to somebody, we always encounter this the importance of learning and educating yourself on how to use these. But just talk about that just a little bit. Do you think the educating yourself has been a key thing with you?
Absolutely. I would have to say, okay, so my first quilt, you hear all these horror stories about people who make these gigantic, wonderful, beautiful quilts for the new couple or the niece or the nephew, or I don't know, the daughter-in-law or whatever. And the dog ends up sleeping on the quilt. So before I went to any classes, I made my first quilt for my mother's dog, because I decided that I was just going to go ahead and rip the bandage off. And I made a semi-custom quilt for the dog. And it was, I'd like to say it was lovingly made, but there might have been some cursing involved. And it really gave me a start so that I could see where I needed to go, what I needed to learn, how I needed to tweak. And I'm happy to say that Dolly, my mother's dog, sleeps on this quilt every day. It's washed once a week. It has held, it has done everything that it needed to do. And I've watched how the batting worked, how the stitching has, the tie-offs and tie-ons and all that kind of thing. It was a good way to experiment with nobody being upset.
So you embarked on your maiden voyage of making a quilt here by making a quilt for a dog. And but you put some personal like abuse to this quilt that you've made, and been able to see the nuts and bolts of it.
Each block is different. I use the border features and the corners, all the things that, and I didn't know really how to run the software. I would so baby green girl, you can see her right there, there's baby green girl.
Yes.
I had to fool her to get her to do what I wanted to do, because I didn't know how to think like she thinks. Now I've since learned a thing or two about that, but yeah, I did manage to do it. And then I made a small quilt for my stepfather's headrest in his lounge chair. Um, and then my third quilt went into the Keepsake Quilting catalog. So it went right out of the gate.
Very nice. Well, I just want to say one thing. And also talking about fooling the machine into doing what you wanted it to do because you weren't yet as familiar with it as you should be. That is one thing. Working in tech support, I talk to people all the time, and I have found that quite often these machines have there's a certain intuition about them, even if you don't know everything about them. You can there's lots of different ways you can go around and figure out how to do whatever you're trying to do. But that being said, I agree with you about the education part being very very important. The I think on gamble.com there are entire courses like Statler, new owner training for Statler. Is that what it says?
All machines.
Yeah, all the different machines, each one of the different ones. But
when
yeah.
Austin came to put the retrofit on my machine, he said that I was one of only a handful of people who had done all the new owner training before he got there. So I can't recommend that enough. That was what allowed me to have a successful result, really, when I didn't exactly know what I was doing. And I would have to say to anybody that's tentative, because it is intimidating to stand in front of a 30-inch head with a 12-foot machine. And I would have bought a 14-foot table, but I'd have had to take my kitchen out back over there. So I didn't do that. But I just decided that I couldn't hurt it, that it might hurt me, but that I couldn't hurt it. And so just to jump in with both feet and try it.
Now, kind of as a rebuttal to that, whenever you got your machine, did you have any idea that there was going to be enough quilts to do in your area to sustain it?
No, I didn't. I moved to a very different demographic. In Albuquerque, we have no less, or had at the time when I left, we had no less than 8 quilt shops. The town that I live near now, Greensboro, is the closest town to me, and they only have 2. But the size of the population is about the same size. I did come back.
How long have you been in North Carolina now this time?
We moved in 2021. We moved back in 2021. And I would have to say, though, the first thing that I did was I joined 3 quilt guilds. And I have 2 more that I want to join. I think that has helped. But I think the other thing that you have to really gauge is these ladies and gentlemen are giving you their baby. These quilts represent hours of planning, hours of preparation, hours of piecing, and I think they have to get to know you well enough to know that they can trust you. I cut my teeth on charity work for Quilts of Valor and charity quilts for all 3 of my guilds, and that seems to be a service that all guilds need help with, and so that is an excellent way to learn.
Well, that is very interesting. And would you say that the 3 guilds that you've joined have largely helped you grow your customer base, or have you also found any other avenues that were successful in finding more customers?
Well, I had business cards printed, and I have distributed those around. Now I have only done 60 quilts in a year. Many of these, I did 30 before I went to Quilting with Confidence, before I went to the first Quilting with Confidence, and I've done about 30 since then. And I would have to say that most of those being Quilts of Valor have been given to recipients in ceremonies. So they have been seen by a large amount of people. And I also, anytime my guild has something that they need help with, I volunteer to quilt it for free. And I think
Yeah.
that has made a big difference.
So do you feel like you're getting your name out there more? Do you have a sense that your name's getting out there more? What is your
Well,
sense?
I think so. I think the other thing that has really helped is there are several long armors in my area that are also Gamel owners, and they have been very kind. They have given me advice. They've not seen me as a rival. They also, oftentimes, if they have a large backlog, will send more work my way. And I have relied on them to send me things that were within my ability to accomplish.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to ask you, moving along in this interview, when you first when you purchased your Statler, did you personally come up with the funds to purchase your machine for the people out there?
Well, I decided to finance half and pay half down. Gamel worked with me on that, and I think it is important that if you decide to finance, that you get a company that understands what they're financing. If you look to outside financing, if you tell them a long arm quilter, they don't.
What's that?
They don't get that. They don't understand that, and then they see the price of it, especially a new one, and they think you're buying a car.
Yeah.
So and there is the other thing that I will say about it is there is no penalty for paying off with this particular finance company that Gamel recommends early. I can pay it off anytime I want to pay it off. And when I bought it, interest rates were low.
And on that note, I know Jaden works in the sales department. The salespeople can probably point you in the direction of financing and things like that. Also.
Yeah, absolutely. And our financing options are also available on our website. You can find them also by going to gamel.com/financing. And just to interject one moment, we have 2 questions from Holly. Holly first says, "What is quilting with confidence?" Holly, quilting with confidence is it's kind of our Gamel educational road tour where we go to several cities across the U.S. and we bring in machines and Gamel educators that do both 2-day and 4-day sections of classes for how to quilt, both beginner and advanced techniques.
If you're a quilter and can go to Quilting with Confidence next season, boy, you should definitely go. It's
a great informative time, and it's just a great time to meet other like-minded quilters and friends in the making. So we will be having the Quilting with Confidence tour in person in 2024. We just haven't released the schedule for where we will be and the dates for those yet. We did roughly like 30 or so dates in 2023, so we went all over the United States, and there should be an option near you next year when the opportunity arises. So we have those are our in-person classes, and then we also have many online courses that you can buy and have access to on gamel.com. And so yeah, Holly, just stay tuned, like us on Facebook under Gamel Quilting, and check our website periodically or get connected with us so we can get you those dates and locations whenever we release the schedule for Quilting with Confidence 2024.
And Holly's also asking about where you can go for classes. Just go to gamel.com and you can find everything you need on there. You may, if you don't already have an account created, you may need to register an owner's account, which is free and easy. So do that. Okay. So back to Lewis. Where are we at here? Now you said you had like a background in cartography and you were what is that you said you're doing for the state? You said it seemed similar to the quilting.
I made the maps for the state. I ran the plotters. And I also worked for a company that rectified aerial photography for enhanced 911, digital imaging. And I worked for a company in California that made in-flight entertainment systems that, so it runs just like a plotter. It runs like a CNC machine. It has an X and a Y and a Z. I was pretty confident that I could learn the software and make it run. My learning curve, my big learning curve has been hand guided, quite frankly. These ladies who do this and do custom at this are true artists.
Mhm.
And that comes from a person who's lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where the art community is very large and very varied. And my hat's off to them because they do an excellent job.
I've just never seen anybody compare cartography and the aerial plotting, to the Statler machine. But I can see exactly what you're talking about. Are you still working other than doing quilting right now, or what's that situation for you?
I do. I work at a gym. I'm a professional trainer, and I work in the gym. And I also recently have been called to work at a local fabric store, and I did take that job. I think that has helped in the promotion of my business because the ladies now see me at Guild, but they also see me in the store. And we do have several ladies that we recommend for long arm quilting, but I don't really see that as any kind of conflict or, competition at all. The other thing that's really good about it is that if you can somehow link into one of your local quilt shops, I don't carry batting. I don't carry backing. I don't have the space, and my business is not at a point where, that's a lot of overhead that I don't have to pay for. The shop sells those supplies, and I'm happy to meet my customers there.
That is a kind of a great segue for you into opportunities to get new business and make your life a bit easier. So you said that learning and becoming comfortable with hand guided is a challenge. As we know, many of these ladies that have been doing it for years and years to get as good as they are. So do you mainly just do edge to edge while you're honing in your hand guided skills?
Well, I practice on all of it when I don't have a paying client. I originally went to undergraduate school, to art school, and I just didn't quite vibe with what was happening in art school. That's how I wound up in geography. I had maps, hand-drawn maps, published in a book when I was in undergraduate school, and it satisfied both needs. But I have to say that even though I have been trained as a painter and a printmaker, and I am a seamstress, I've made alterations for a living, that when you get ready to manipulate a head on a machine that's that big, and of course, when I took Quilting with Confidence hand guided in Glen Allen, Virginia, no, in Memphis, I was in Memphis for that, I think. An 18-inch head and a 30-inch head has a very different feel. Yeah. And, my machine is 30 inches and it has the power assist, but the power assist and taking the belts off have two different feels too. And I think you have to decide what works best for which thing you're doing. If you're feathering, that's different than ruler work. And so, you have to manage those things. There's a lot of variables.
So let me ask you, do you charge by the hour, by the square inch? How do you have that working in your business?
Well, this is something that I'm struggling with right now. I charge 0.025 cents a square inch, but cone thread that I buy has gone up $2. We have one lady in the area that does the exact same thing for 0.01 cent a square inch.
Wow.
And I don't understand, I mean, I like this person, and we are convivial acquaintances, but I still haven't uncovered the mindset of that. And for me, this is not a hobby or a pastime. If I'm going to do business, I want to do business. And so I can see giving my guild members, my fellow guild members, a guild discount, but I can't make it pay at that rate.
That is a great point. You have to find that level in which it's worth your time and helps pay for your equipment, and thread cost and all these things that are associated with that. So, have you gotten to a point where you have an understanding of what the average queen size quilt would cost one of your customers if you just did a computerized edge to edge pattern?
My average edge to edge on a 60 by 80 is about $120. Depending on density. I did some samples for a friend of mine here that was making bags for a fabric designer. And, density on a quilted bag has to be a lot tighter than on a quilt. And of course, if you quilt a quilt really super dense, it can stand up and walk away.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's a matter of that. And I'm definitely learning about pricing, that these are some of the things that, are the big learning curve. Taxes,
Yes.
how do you charge, how do you get more business? What do you, these are things that I'm struggling with.
Yes, and actually, and I'm glad you're sharing that with us, because for people to see that the things that you're struggling with are the things that the majority of people who start out with a business do struggle with. And you have to find the balance between knowing what the quality of your work is worth, and not overcharging. I think for the people that are watching, it is beneficial to try to watch all of these podcasts, because every person that we have talked to has a take on exactly what you're talking about there, Lewis. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to ask you, we're getting close to where we need to go over to Gentry, but do you, with your business, do you provide any supplies like batting or anything, or you said you pretty much don't do that?
I can do that. I do have some of that, but I try to run the majority of that through our fabric store, because that she can carry a much wider variety, bleached, black,
Right.
all natural, bamboo. We have all
Oh
of
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's
And
right. And so do you do like binding, piecing, backings, and piecing and things like that?
I do bind, and I charge by the linear inch. I do, and if I have to cut it for you, I charge more. I do charge to piece backs, and I charge extra if they have a pieced back and they want it on a certain way. I do charge a prep for that, because I have to line all that up and baste it down and get it all. I particularly on my own personal quilts like a pieced back. I guess I don't like to waste anything, so those orphan blocks always have a place to go. but it's a handling fee.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Now, who was your biggest cheerleader or support system in getting started with a long arm?
My husband has watched me jump off in the cliff into the deep end over many, many things. And I would have to say that he's my biggest supporter. When something would go wrong and I couldn't figure it out, he would say, "Oh, but we can fix it." And I would say, "We who?" But he would encourage me to go back over there and keep trying, or call technical support. And I have to say that that is something, they're always there. They're always there. They always call you back. They'll always help you.
Huge benefit.
Well, let me ask you one more thing. In your limited amount of time since you've started, what would be your biggest piece of advice that you could give somebody that's starting out right now?
Well, I was raised in a family of educators. Everyone in my family, including me, taught school. And I believe that knowledge is power, and that you should avail yourself of all the education that you possibly can, the caveat being quality education. YouTube has a host of videos, but the videos are only as good as the person making the video. And I think that it is perfectly reasonable to think that you can do this, that you can earn a living at it. The one thing I will say about my area is there's plenty of work. There are plenty of quilts. There are plenty of ladies and gentlemen that want things quilted. There's plenty of work. You just have to be able to do the work and be confident about it.
Excellent. Well, Lewis, thank you so much for sharing what you've shared with us. Do you have a website or email or anything that you'd like to put out there where people could get a hold of you? Or
so Lewis Schafer quilting@gmail.com, and it's Schafer the easy way, one of everything, SCHAFER. And my first name is indeed Lewis, LEWIS, like a man. I'm named for my great grandmother. And anyone who would like to contact me, if I can help you, I want to. The ladies at the Quilting with Confidence tour in both locations that I went to have been continual friends since I've been there, and I'm more than happy to pay that forward to anybody that would like to talk to me.
Well, very good. Lewis, thank you so much for answering our questions and providing thoughtful insight for the listeners tonight. So, Gentry, we'll move over to you. Thank you for being with us, and let's start out with just, where are you from?
So I currently live in Portland, Indiana. I'm from Ohio, so we moved over here about probably a year and a half ago. So I kind of grew up in Indiana. My grandma lived here, and we've had our shop in Portland, Indiana for 5 years now.
And how long have you been involved in long arming?
So long arming, I've been involved the past 6 years. Me and Grandma originally purchased a long arm from somebody near us that was kind of going out of business, didn't want to do it anymore. And we had both worked at a previous quilt shop, and we really hadn't. They went out of business, and so we were like, we need another quilt shop in our town. We heard of somebody that had one for sale. We kind of just jumped in with both feet. We didn't really know a whole lot about what we were doing. I think owning a shop is definitely continuing your learning. You never stop learning. Every day something new.
All right. Well, before we move on, I'm just going to ask the question that everybody's asking. You're young enough that I can ask this. You've been long arming for 6 years. How old are you right now?
Mm-hmm. I am 18. I just turned 18 in May.
Wow.
So you started quilting as a toddler. Okay.
So you
Yeah, so I actually started making Barbie clothes on my mom's sewing machine in our basement during the summer. And then grandma was like, why don't you let me take you to the quilt shop? And so she started taking me to the quilt shop, and that's kind of where it grew from there. And I was like always interested in the most I don't know how to the most hard thing to do. I was piecing squares and I wanted to learn how to applique. It was like I wanted to do more, and that's kind of where it went. And it's constantly been like that. And I think if grandma was here, she would probably agree with that.
So you said that you and your grandma first bought a long arm from a shop that was closing. Did you guys buy that with the intention of starting a quilting business with it, or was it more just to continue your guys' shared passion of quilting?
Yeah, so we bought the gamble from a private individual, and our local quilt shop was going out of business. So that's when we decided we were like, we need to put in a quilt shop. So this local individual contacted us and said, I have a gamble for sale, but they made us take an embroidery machine with it. And yeah, we had no intentions of owning a fabric store by any means. We're like, we're just gonna quilt. We're just going to quilt. And then that kind of grew into, well, then we bought out another quilt shop, and then we bought out another quilt shop. And now we have like 5,000 square feet full of fabric and notions and thread and everything you can imagine, like quilters galore, right? And it's fun. It's so fun. But yeah, we had no intentions of opening a shop. I think we just wanted to quilt for people.
You're basically becoming the monopoly man of the quilting world at the age of 18.
The machine that you guys first bought, is that the same machine you're using today for your quilting services?
Yeah, so we bought a Statler, and we are still using our Statler to this day. We've upgraded a few things on it. We've put some new wheels on it. We've got a big monitor on the back wall, so so grandma can see better, and it's kind of nice to have. Our customers love to look at that, and that's the great thing about the creative studio. You can follow along and watch right where that quilter's quilting. It's going to have a red line. You can see it, and your customers just love to watch that. So yeah, we're still using that same Statler, and it's definitely going to last a long time. I can tell you that. They're built to last.
So when you first started out, and we had a little bit of this discussion with Lewis, and Lewis, you're welcome to jump in anytime if something strikes you. But how did you and your grandma know when you first started if there was enough business in your area to support, another long arm quilter?
So the lady that we kind of went to her quilt shop in the summer, and grandma and me kind of helped out there, and I would be the one cutting scraps. So she was always like backed up 2 years. She had so much business, and so it was like we knew, and then we had a couple other quilt shops in local counties around us that had gone out, and it was like there's nobody to quilt. So we just knew that there was probably going to be quite more than enough business to go around. And like I think kind of like you mentioned, even if there is other quilters, don't be afraid to, like, you're not going to step on their toes. There's so many different people out there, and the thing about it is each quilter has their own style. Me and grandma definitely have different styles. I like a little bit more dense, she doesn't. So everybody has their different style, and I think people kind of latch on to that when they meet you. So there's plenty of business to go around, and yeah, I think that where we started is we just knew there was going to be enough business. But don't ever hesitate to start a quilting business just because somebody else has one started already.
Did you guys have to utilize any creative ways to get new customers, or did you kind of just absorb the people that were out there in need of a long arm quilter?
So I feel like we absorbed a lot of people that had, when she went out of business, I feel like we absorbed a lot of her customers. We also were like a couple years behind when she closed, but I feel like another thing was we've really pushed really hard to get our name out there. We did quilt shows last year. So like one-stop shop hops is what they call them. You might have 20 to 30 quilt shops. That's a great way to get your name out there. And I know it is a ton of work because we did 13 of them last year and it was absolutely crazy. And I think I'm a little crazy for doing that to myself, but it was really fun. And the people you get to meet is just, it's insane. It's amazing. It's a great experience. We've also I've had a couple local quilt guilds ask me to do demonstrations, pop-up shops. If your quilt guilds have like local days where they come in and sew, like sew days, just ask them, hey, can I come show you what my shop has to offer? That's something that we started with, and I feel like we've gained a ton of traffic from that. So we're also out in like the middle of we're in a little town, so I think we have a little bit of an advantage there just because there is nobody else. But yeah, there's definitely ways to get your name out along with social media.
Well, it almost sounds like even from the beginning, you almost had more customers than you needed. Have you you've like had a whole customers like from the get-go? Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, we've had customers from the get-go. I think with anything though, if you take any business classes or you do anything with business, they always say it takes 3 years to get started. And I feel like after the 3 years, we definitely still seen an incline in things. So even though we maybe had customers to start with, which was great, and I feel like you always have something to start with. There's going to be somebody who's cheering you on. That's like, I'm going to support you and I'm going to help you get your name out there. So there's always somebody. But yeah, I think 3 years is that mark, and you really see a good incline. A couple of our other local quilt shops that are in counties around us, we just did our first shop hop actually last month with them. They only allow so many so many shops to be in the shop hop, and they do 5 shops. Well, somebody dropped out, so we got into that, and that brought a ton of customers who did not know we were there, which we were absolutely shocked about. So we about had probably 200 to 300 people that didn't even know we existed from, a 50-mile radius. So that's kind of crazy, or a 100-mile radius that didn't know we were there. So it's ever growing, like it's never stopping.
That is a great feeling to have. And you said that you and your grandma you're doing more now than you ever imagined you would with the amount of fabric and notions and things that you guys carry.
Yeah.
About how many hours a week do you both spend quilting?
So between the two of us, we've so we do commercial embroidery, we do the quilting. At one point we had a Classic Plus and a Statler. I just got rid of our Classic Plus about 3 months ago just because of time. You gotta have time. But we love our Statler too. She does all the customs, or no, I do all the customs. She does most of the edges to edge quilts. I'll do some edge to edge here and there, but we each try to, split that hourly. I don't know. I probably spend 2 days on the cut, like on a quilt, or 3 days a week, and she spends the other 2 or 3 days. So we about split it 50-50, but when she's not there, she has a doctor's appointment, I'm filling in for her. We both know how to do our jobs, and yeah, I feel like we both basically just split equally. I don't know about hourly, but we're in there most days during the week, 6-7 days a week sometimes. So
you say you do most of the custom, and she does most of the edge to edge. But what would you say?
Yep.
As far as your business, what's the ratio of those two? Half and
I would probably say at least 45% custom, probably, the other part. It's close to 50-50. It just depends on the month. During the Christmas time, we get a lot more customs just because I feel like people do more decorative stuff and they want you to bypass that. And then you've got to, make it look a little fancier. It's not just a birthday gift.
Yeah.
It's
how much more time consuming is the custom for you than edge to edge, would you say?
So generally we can get like a queen to king off in a day and a half usually. Customs, that's an edge to edge. So customs, if you're going to do a custom king, oh my goodness, that could take like up to a week. I just did 2 twin sizes, and she wanted each block. They were 6-inch blocks. Each one of them was an individual pattern, and then there was embroidery in the center that needed use the trim tools, what they call it. So that took me about 4 to 5 days on each twin size quilt. So that was quite the job. But we got those done. It was very special, and she absolutely, to see the customer's reaction on something like that, because it adds so much to the quilt. It was incredible. It was awesome.
So given that the stark differences between custom and edge to edge, how does your guys' pricing differ between those two services?
Yeah, so we charge 2.5 cents per square inch for edge to edges. That doesn't include batting, binding, anything like that. I know Lewis mentioned that she upcharges for putting piecing backings or anything like that. So we don't charge piecing backings. We don't charge for that. We don't charge for loading. We don't charge for extra thread. And I know some people do, and some of our other quilt shops in surrounding counties do. It's just personal preference. So I feel like we might have like a slight, like couple cents difference, like in the quilting. I feel like that kind of covers for like all of the labor that we're doing. So yeah, 2.5 cents for the edge to edge, you know, and then you've got to add in batting, binding, all that stuff. And then for custom, that's when it kind of gets like, it very much varies on what we're doing. So it could be 3.5 to 5 cents per square inch, depending on if you're going to put 3 different borders. Of how many times do I need to turn the quilt? You know, because you want to work inwards and then go out, so that way, you know, you want it to look nice. So that's, I think, a general rule of thumb. So it really just depends. You know, is every block different, or am I just doing an edge to edge and borders? It very much depends.
How much is an average edge to edge quilt and average custom quilt, would you say, just off the top of
So
your
an
head?
average queen size edge to edge is anywhere from you know, queen sizes, there's no one set number that makes it a queen. So
Right.
we'll say 180 to 220-ish for a normal queen size, just for the quilting part. And then if you're gonna do a custom, oh gosh, I will say that the twins we just did were about 300 a piece. So, and that was custom, and one of them was 4.5 and one of them was 5. I had 3 color changes on one. I had no color changes on the other. So, and one of them had the blocked out trim, and then the other one didn't. So it very much varies. For the custom's a lot harder to judge. You just have to really watch your hours, and, you know, you be upfront with your customer on, you know, this is, you know, if you want custom, it's a little bit more costly. So they just need to keep that in mind. You don't want to scare them with the price, because you can get a lot of money wrapped up in that.
Yeah. We have a question from Debbie. She asked, do you charge per square inch for custom quilting? And I believe you said you charge between 3.5 to 5 cents per square inch for custom quilting.
Yep.
Was that correct? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So generally just doing a border, if I do like 1 or 2 borders, I'll just charge the 3.5, because that means I'm not changing thread colors. I'm not doing anything extra. I'm just turning the quilt. And that's the way I've been taught to do it. I'm sure there's other ways.
Yeah,
so
I know that
yeah.
it depends on a lot of the intensity that you're doing there. About
Yeah.
how many quilts a year do you crank out?
So I believe in 2022, COVID weirdly, oddly, grew us a lot. I feel like we got a lot more business from that, just because people were at home, they had anything to do. Yeah. I feel like in 2022 we about did 290 quilts is roughly, but you know, sometimes you can get 3 baby quilts on and off in a day, just depending on how motivated you are. So I would say, as a starting quilter, don't expect to do that many, because that's sometimes I think that's very unrealistic, because there's years that we've done, you know, 180, you know, it just depends. And sometimes this year we've had a lot of baby quilts, to be honest. And in past years, sometimes we've had, like, they're all kings. So I think it just depends, you know.
So with that, you know, you mentioned baby quilts a lot. Do you guys have a minimum charge for long arm quilting?
We don't, and a lot of people do. And sometimes I think we maybe should. But you know, the kind of way that I think of it is I'm not going to charge somebody so much more just because it's a small quilt. Especially when, you know, they're a reoccurring customer. I like to treat all my customers the same. So even if it's only a $50 quilt, it still means just as much. The business means just as much to me as it does if it was a $400 quilt. Because, you know, good business, you're building that relationship with your customer, and they're going to be returning is what you want, and you want a happy customer. So
And
yes.
we have a question that somebody's asking, do either of you charge a consult fee?
So we don't. Usually we have people call, and I tell a lot of our customers just to call. Same thing when we do a machine, like selling of Janome machines. Call, make sure that, because we do have other people that work for us, and sometimes we're in and out of the office on some days. So call, make sure we're there. I don't charge a consult fee. Usually when they're ready to bring the quilt in, they're buying backing, batting, letting us do their binding. And I feel like that's enough. I don't feel the need to charge them a consult fee when it's taking me 5 minutes of my time when they're going to buy everything from me. So I feel really grateful that all of our customers are able to do that. You know, we're able to provide that for them.
Of course. Now, Lewis.
I don't charge a consult fee, but I have found that when I talk to them about selecting a pattern, if they don't have something in mind, there's a thing in psychology called the paradox of choice, which means too few selections makes you as unhappy as too many. And when they come and look and they see all these patterns that I have, that psychological trigger happens. And so generally I try to get them to narrow before I ever start showing them anything, so that we have a smaller window, because if I just start showing them, their eyes cross and then they're all done. They just can't make a decision. So, you know, that's a tricky thing.
I would totally agree with that. We actually, this is something that we did. We have a binder I printed off. You can go to, on the Creative Studios, you can go and print out like all your patterns that you have. We went and alphabetized them in a binder. And I will say that more often than not, if you have samples hanging on your wall with good quilting patterns, you got one for each season. I will say that we do more quilts with just those patterns that are hanging on the wall, because people get overwhelmed really quick. So always, I feel like having a recommendation in mind is always a good thing. So I kind of agree with that a lot.
We have another question from the same listener asking what you both charge for binding. So Lewis, you can go first.
So
I know you mentioned earlier that you provided that service, both of you.
Gentry, go ahead, hon.
No, okay. So it's 0.009 cents. I don't know what that equals out to, but 0.009 cents per square inch. So roughly like a twin to full size, maybe queen, cost about $45. We do them all by machine, so we don't do any by hand anymore. We use invisible thread, and each of the girls who work for us, we've worked really hard with them to make sure that all of our seams are in the ditch on the other side, so they look just as good as hand binding, and they get looked over before we send them out. So
I need to come take a class.
Yes.
YouTube.
How far of a drive are you from Indiana, Lewis?
I'll travel. If somebody will help me. Really, really great looking. I do it. I charge for it. I charge 35 cents a linear inch because I hate it. And I like it sewn down by hand on the opposite side because I think it looks better, and I'm looking for a way to do that successfully by machine in an acceptable way for my customers who are more discriminating.
And I will say that as far as education, not only do we have the purchasable video courses on Gamble.com, but you can also purchase one-on-one time with our Gamble educators. And specific questions like that you're talking about, Lewis, are beneficial. You can get an hour. Do you know how much an hour is?
It's $59 for an hour with the educator of your choice.
So anyway, just
But when you buy your machine, you get one for free.
That is correct.
That's exactly right.
So,
yes.
Questions like that you really just want extensively elaborated on, you get the opportunity or can purchase the opportunity to talk with an expert on that who also quilts for a business. Now, going back to you, Gentry, as you and your grandmother have been in business for about 5 years, I'm sure you're still looking to grow your business and reach new heights every year. What are some of the hardest things you've encountered in growing your business?
Yeah, so I would say probably one of the hardest things about growing our businesses, sometimes it's hard to so we do sometimes monthly sales, and I feel like sometimes it can be hard to market those sales to get people in your store, because our target audience, per se, sometimes they don't like to use email. A lot of them don't have Facebook, or Instagram. So sometimes it's really hard to, market that sale. And so if you have a country register in your state, I would highly recommend investing in some of their ads. That has been a huge help because they're free. They have a great stuff in them. Put some coupons in there, put your monthly sales in there. That's been probably one of the most challenging things, is just trying to market those sales and get it out there, because you may only have one customer that comes in every 2 months. So sometimes you need to, you got to kind of think outside of the box there, how to get that out there.
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree with in being in tech support and talking with so many people. A lot of the people in the quilting generation are not super tech savvy. And in our area, we have a paper called the Horse Trader, and that a lot of people use. The old timers might be exposed to. So yeah, I can relate to some of what you're saying there.
We have another question here from Holly. She asks, when quilting, do you both sit or stand? And if you do sit, is there a specific type of chair that you use?
Well,
go ahead.
I put hydraulics on my machine for that exact reason. It does make it easier on your back. I can sit or stand, and as my learning curve has been steep, sometimes I do have to take things out, and when I have to take things out, it's painful on my back. And so to be able to move the machine up or down, depending on, if I'm sitting, if I'm standing, how can I readjust? How far am I reaching? I think that hydraulics are a very, very nice feature.
So Gentry, actually go ahead and answer that question if you have any input.
So we do not have hydraulics on our machine, and that's something I've wanted to get for a really long time, considering that my grandma was extremely short compared to how tall I am, and I'm not that tall, but she's just shorter than I am. So yeah, I've wanted hydraulics, so I would say it sounds like it's a good investment. I've never heard anything bad about it, but as far as I've always stood, my grandma stands all day. And if you don't want to get the hydraulics, or maybe you can't afford them, look into some type of memory foam mat. We got a really nice squishy one from Home Depot, and I know that has saved our back tons of times. There's not really a good chair. There are some saddle chairs out there for posture that I do have one, and it depending on what you're doing, if you're doing custom, it's okay to use, but as far as, it's really hard to sit while you're doing an edge to edge. So
Yeah.
Well, Gentry, we're getting close to the end here. Let me ask you a question. Who has been your biggest cheerleader through all this, would you say?
So I would say probably my entire family. I mean, obviously, my grandma, she's been a huge help. She put forth that money to buy our gamble to start. So that was huge. My parents, my brothers and well, my sisters and brothers-in-law, they all support our business. They're always interested in what I'm doing, whether it's getting t-shirt quilts made or baby blankets or anything embroidered. It's always support from everyone. My boyfriend, their family, getting him stuff embroidered. So it's everyone. Everybody wants to see you succeed.
That is great. And now, Gentry, lastly, as a young entrepreneur, running this quilt shop with your grandma and quilting at 18 years old, what has the money this has brought you and the flexibility that this type of business offers you, how has that impacted your life?
Yeah, so I would say the money and the flexibility, I would say probably what I'm most grateful for is flexibility. I can get off when I need to. I can come home, make supper, do whatever, get all those things done. I can take a vacation if I want to. I've got to do a lot of traveling, owning the business, just doing business trips and traveling. Through Janome, through Gamble, I've done the retreat, the Quilting with Confidence tour, I think in 2022 maybe, or 2020. I'm not sure. No, 2020. I don't remember. Anyways, I did the one in Pennsylvania, and that was super fun. So I've done a lot of traveling. So I would say the flexibility and the traveling has been huge for me. I love to travel. So yeah.
And I'll tell you, they still remember you from your visit at the Quilting with Confidence in Hershey. So,
well, that's good.
Guys, it has been such a pleasure to visit with both of you tonight and hear your stories, and we're just so thankful for you joining us and talking to everybody listening from home.
Yes, it's been great meeting both of you and talking with you. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us. You have had a valuable and unique perspective that I think has really helped the listeners of our podcast today. And Gentry, from your starting out as a toddler and continuing on, I'm just messing with you. No, we've been very glad to have you. Thank you so much.
You guys both feel free to repeat how people can get a hold of you one last time, how they can find both of you.
So, yeah, start with you, Lewis.
Lewis Schafer Quilting at gmail.com, and my phone number is 505-933-3874.
What about you, Gentry?
So you can find us on Facebook at Grandma and then the letter N-Me Quilting, quilting without the G. And our phone number is 260-726-2717.
Very good. Well, thank you both. That gives an opportunity for the listeners tonight and future listeners of this episode to reach out to you both. And that is the least we can do for you joining us this evening.
Yes. So. And I do want to tell our listeners, any of the resources that we talked about on Gamble, you can pretty much get in touch with all of our Gamble resources on gamble.com, including our business package and the education materials. Correct. So I encourage you to go to gamble.com for that. And with that, are we done?
We're done.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you.